Hi, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to all candidate meeting. I hope you're having a great day.
Oh, Angela, 1 second. Sorry, I haven't started it yet.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, can I just make a comment? My camera's not working. I apologize.
Okay. I have your photo for your when it's your turn to speak, so I'll place that on.
No problem. Thank you.
I'm just gonna share my screen and then Angela, let me know once you're ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I want to welcome the two candidates from Region 6 who will be joining us this afternoon. And I welcome all our other attendees to this webinar. Thank you so much for coming. And I would like to tell you the structure that we would follow in order to do these presentations today. Each presenter will have an opportunity to speak or give remarks for 10 minutes, followed by 5 minutes period of questions and answers. It's the order in which they would speak is by alphabetical order. So Parishka's last name is Bada, so she will go first, and Alicia will go second. And after they do their presentation and we open up for speaking, asking questions, you have two options. One, to write your questions in the chat box, and my assistant here, who is the board coordinator, Ifra, will read them for each presentee, and they would have 2 minutes to answer, okay, a question. And she is also our timekeeper and will let me know when the 15 seconds to go before the 2 minutes closes, so I could give you an indication it's time for you to close your response. Following Alicia's presentation, again, she has 10 minutes, followed by 5 minutes presentation. And also attendees also have the option to unmute themselves and ask questions within that 5 minutes period. Following the presentation from both candidates, we'll then have an opportunity to ask additional questions, either from the chat box or when you unmute yourself to ask questions, and we'll take that in order. Each person will have the turn to speak for about 2 to 2.5 minutes on each question, and then we would close. So I just want to tell you the order and how this process will go and what you could do to ask your questions. So again, welcome. And I would like to invite Parishka now to start her presentation.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to share my my screen with you. Hosts, oh, there it is, okay, disabled. Okay. So host disabled person. So I need the screen, my ability to share screens. Go
ahead. You should be able to now.
Okay. There it is. Share. I'm going to start from here. Okay. So can everybody see this? Okay.
Yes.
So my name is Piroshka Bara. I am an RN, and I have studied other aspects, but the most important aspect of being part of the RNAO is that I am a registered nurse. And I speak out for nursing, and I speak out for health. And I have been doing this for quite a few years. First, I just would like to introduce myself, and then I would like to speak about some of the things that I have done with respect to RNAO and volunteer work, and as well as what I stand for and what my priorities are, so that you understand where I am with respect to Region 6. So let's begin first. I'm a nursing professional. I've been nursing for 30 years. Most of that has been spent in critical care. Then I have been in teaching and business management. I've been project manager. I have worked at all the colleges and universities except U of T and Ryerson, I believe, in the GTA. I also worked at Nipissing University. I have a very strong educational background as well as a very strong clinical background. I have also taught personal safety and self-defense to public health nurses. And I'm a coach and also a mentor. And currently I am teaching in nursing, coronary care program, as well as chronic disease management and nursing leadership management. I also speak out in public about privacy, about the new healthcare system, and I'm very active on Twitter, especially right now with respect to what is happening in long-term care. I am dedicated to excellence in patient-centered care, evidence-based practice. I strive to work collaboratively to create models of outside customer service with integrity, humanity, dignity, and respect. And those 4 values are my core values. I am also practice complementary therapies, and I am a member of the complementary therapy group and also the independent practicing therapy group. I am a Reiki master teacher. I also do therapeutic touch. I am a professional coach, and I'm a hypnotherapist and soon to be a psychotherapist as I'm finishing another master's degree. I have done a lot of volunteer work, and a lot of it has been with Region 6. And this is just, and there's no point in reading this. The point of this is that I have been very much active, involved in healthcare, in first aid, especially in brain injuries. My father had a traumatic brain injury in 2005, and we took care of him. And it opened my eyes to what is happening in rehabilitation, what is happening in community services, especially for those with brain injuries and strokes and so on. So I became very actively involved in that area. And then I realized that in order for me to make a difference, not only do I do fundraising and are members of boards and work with other entities, but also the RNAO has a very strong voice. So my voice comes from the experience of having been a neurotrauma nurse and then my father having an accident and really seeing what is happening out there. And I'm very passionate about continuing to advocate for patients and for patients to receive the right and proper care and the right number of professionals to work there, as well as speaking out for families and services to be available and to have access to those services. So advocacy is a massive component of what needs to be done. But another thing that I'm really passionate about is violence in nursing and verbal and physical abuses that we put up with. And hence I'm doing my master's degree in counseling psychology to assist nurses who will suffer or may be suffering PTSD, vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress, and even burnout. I believe that we can support each other and help each other. And since I've been working in all these different capacities, especially now with COVID-19, this is even more so important that we support each other. I have also worked as or volunteer as an education director for the complementary therapy group, and now I'm on the board of directors of the RNAO. I've also been on many different committees. Again, these are just to show that I've done a lot of different things, but I continue to be interested in making sure that we apply best practice guidelines, that we use patient-centered care, patient and family-centered care, and that we advocate for RNs to be in full scope of practice, NPs to be in full scope of practice, and that we use the proper mix of professionals when they are at work, and especially right now in long-term care. It is evident, we have the evidence, and it needs to be brought forth. And I've been volunteering and lobbying for this. The other thing that's really important is mental health, especially within the Indigenous communities. But in the end, no matter what we do, we are nurses. And I believe that supporting each other and knowing why we are here and why we do what we do, we also need to have self-care and also have to have the spirit of compassion, kindness, and applying our knowledge and wisdom. So my parting thoughts for today would be, give to my eyes light to see those in need, give to my heart compassion and understanding, give to my mind knowledge and wisdom, give to my hands skill and tenderness, give to my ears the ability to listen, and give to my spirit inspiration and hope. And may I also give all of you inspiration and hope in what we can achieve in Region 6.
Thank you, Parashka. And now I would ask the audience if you are mute, to unmute yourselves. But first we will take any questions from the chat box, and I would ask Ifra if she could read those questions. And once we complete those, we will go to questions from the audience. Other questions. Okay, are there any questions, Ifra?
No questions on the chat. If you would like to ask a question on the line, feel free to just unmute yourself. We'll give you about a minute to do so. Okay, looks like there's no questions for now. Angela, we can move on to, oh,
Okay.
sorry. So, looks like one last minute question. This is from Paul Emmanuel. What do you see as a prime focus for RNAO? And you'll have 2 minutes to respond, Ashka.
I think the prime focus for the RNAO is many pronged, in the sense that right now, the scope of nursing and what is happening in nursing, we almost have to defend. Recently, the CNO has brought out a suggestion to change the scope of practice of RPNs, which then changes, or there's an overlap with RNs. That already has been happening. I think to maintain the integrity of our scope of practice, to maintain the integrity of what we stand for and what we do, and the RNAO must stand by nurses, and we do stand by nurses. And this has to be a very strong scope. The other scope that's very strong is to engage the public and engage the members to lobby and to understand that we are really speaking out for health, and we're speaking out for RNs. And especially when it comes to public policy, as well as working with politicians in creating those policies. This is time consuming. It is, it creates a lot of work for a lot of us, in a sense that we must have evidence and report that evidence. RNAO's focus has been to really use evidence-based practice, meaning evidence to show what we need to have done in order for us to be able to do our job as RNs for the betterment of everyone. So I think that is the future focus. And I know that there's a lot of issues that are coming up with this right now. But the other two things that I think is really important is advocacy. So advocating for nurses and advocating for health and access to care, especially in Northern Ontario and remote areas. The other one that is coming up and has been bubbling up is violence, and how to manage violence and hold institutions as well as everyone accountable to make sure that we, as much as is legally there, that we are to work in a safe environment, that we are held up to that, meaning everyone is held up to that, so that we can do our job the best possible way that we can.
Thank you, Piroshka. Are there any other questions?
In the chat, we have one more from Lindsay Miles. Her question is, what are the 3 strongest qualities that will help you be a good representative? Again, just 2 minutes to respond.
Passion, integrity, collaboration. I think that's it. I mean, it was 3, right? Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm passionate. You need to be passionate about this. This requires a tremendous amount of integrity, so that we speak our truth, we stand by our truth, and we act, and we are leaders by example, and that is integrity. And collaboration. We collaborate with not only nurses, but with government, with politicians, with lobbyists, with the public, and we have to have a collaborative sense of we are in this together and work nicely together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No further questions, Angela.
Okay, so now we'll ask our second candidate, Alicia, to speak for 10 minutes, and then following your speak, you would have the opportunity to answer questions for 5 minutes. And following that, and again, I'll repeat, people have the option to write into the chat box, or they could unmute themselves to ask questions. And once your presentation and Q&A is completed, then there'll be opportunity to ask questions of both of you taking turns, and we would see if the audience have further questions. So Alicia, welcome, and you may speak now. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. So I wanted to say thank you to our moderators, Angela and Irfra, and to my fellow candidate Prioska, and all the RNAO members who have joined us on this webinar today. My name is Alicia Moonstar, and I am a nurse practitioner in nephrology, hemodialysis at Humber River Hospital, and I am interested in running for the board of directors position for Region 6. Just a little bit about myself. I've been nursing now for approximately 16 years in Ontario, and I've worked in different sectors of the healthcare. I've worked in different sectors of healthcare to include acute care settings and primary care. I graduated from Centennial College with a diploma in nursing in 2004, and then completed my Bachelor's of Science degree from Ryerson University in 2007. I later pursued a master's degree in nursing from DUville College in Buffalo in 2009. And in 2014, I completed my postgraduate diploma nurse practitioner program in primary healthcare at McMaster University. I'm also currently pursuing a Doctor of Nursing practice degree from Walden University, and I presently hold clinical appointments with the Lawrence Bloomberg Faculty of Nursing at the University of Toronto and the Daphne Coxwell School of Nursing at Ryerson University as an adjunct lecturer. Throughout my 16 years of nursing, I've held many different roles from staff RN to advanced practice nursing roles, to include nurse educator, clinical nurse specialist, advanced practice nurse, and in my current roles as a nurse manager and a nurse practitioner. In terms of my RNAO participation and leadership, I first became involved with the RNAO as a student liaison and later became a workplace liaison and a member of the Workplace Liaison Council back in 2012. I've also attended the annual Queen's Park Day, where I've shared the perspectives of the RNAO members to elected officials such as MPs and MPPs to inform a wide variety of nursing and health priorities and to reinforce the power of our collective voice as a nursing profession. In the last 4 years, I've held the board member position of the Provincial Nomination Committee and has served as the membership Executive Network Officer of the Nurse Practitioner Interest Group. These experiences have really allowed me to engage in political platform and to continue to speak to emerging concerns, to be able to advocate for healthy public policy and to continue to promote excellence within nursing practice and within our organization at the RNAO. Working for the RNAO has also been very invaluable to me and has led me to develop a more in-depth understanding of governance, shared governance, and policy development. And I'm really excited to be running for this position, as I'm passionate as my opponent about advancing the nursing profession. I'm really looking forward to building relationships through membership engagement and to continue to advocate and support diverse changes in healthcare, and ask that you kindly vote for me for Region 6. At this time, I'm happy to address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. So now we have questions from the chat box, and then we'll have questions that people could unmute themselves and ask to Alicia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So are there any questions from the chat box?
Yeah, we have one question from Paula Manuel. What is shared governance to you? How does it occur?
So shared governance to me is really engaging our stakeholders at the RNAO. So our president, are liaising with our community partners, such as the different healthcare sectors, as well as our government partners, and really sort of identifying what the issues are and how we could come together to perform and provide solutions incorporating best practice guidelines to support a healthy community, to support our diverse population, and so that in the end everyone feels supported and the outcome is a good outcome that is attainable to all. So my idea is really communication, collaboration, looking at different areas of opportunities of how we could be creative and resourceful to be able to provide whatever outcome it is to our communities.
Thank you. Any other questions for Alicia?
No questions now. If you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question, please go ahead, or you can continue to enter questions into the chat box.
This is Sandra. I'm wondering if either candidate actually has interests or concerns on environment and health of our people.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll start with Alicia.
Thank you for your question. Yes, actually, the environment and the well-being of our nurses is, given in this current climate, is quite important. And I think that we need to look at the obstacles currently affecting, currently enacting in the environment, and we need to look at our nurses and how this has whatever environmental changes or problems have impacted our nurses, and we need to sort of discuss at a political level how to sort of, as we move forward, how to create solutions to be able to not have the situation reoccur. So when we're looking at the current state, we're looking at talking about things such as the pandemic. I'm looking at, just some of the emerging issues that have been happening in long-term care settings. And really our goal is to, one, keep our patients healthy and safe, and as well as to keep our nurses healthy and safe, and to ensure that they have the necessary requirements and strong policies to support their practice going forward.
Thank you. Now is Parishka's turn.
Thank you for the question, Sandra. And interestingly enough, I've just been in touch having this conversation with someone from the environmental interest group from nurses, and which I'm actually thinking of joining because there's a number of things that are happening in the environment. So to name a few, obviously the changes that are happening with the pollution levels. I think now we're finding out how many things are dumped into the oceans, especially when it comes to plastic. And there's 4 rivers in the world that seem to just push that into the oceans, which is not very good, as well as our carbon emissions. The other challenges are things that we're not sure about, but however, there's much science about it, but people have not listened to. And I've been in touch with some scientists from U of T and from Peterborough, is the different types of EMF radiation. And that has been on and off an issue that has not been addressed. Yet researchers from Princess Margaret Hospital have said we need to really look at this and investigate. And the research is there that it does cause cancer. So there are a number of issues that we can certainly work with. And as when we speak out for health and when we actually advocate for something to be looked at, these are some of the issues that we have to make sure that stays on top of the agenda. It is way too easy for companies to kind of put a blind to it. However, when it affects the population and it increases a certain death rates, it's a really big problem. Obviously, COVID-19 is an issue right now as a pandemic, and how do we move forward? But how do we move forward that we keep the environment still intact? Meaning how we make our food, how agriculture, what kind of pesticides do we use? Do we use GMOs? Is that okay? There's so much research coming out. A lot of these things are not okay. And how do we prepare ourselves, knowing what we should and shouldn't do, and what should we have in our homes even, to make sure that it is good? For example, should we use antibacterial soaps? Should we use some of the chemicals that are in our food and in our cleaning supplies? So there's much that we can do to help the population and educate and engage them, but also at a governmental level to bring awareness that some of these things do affect our health, and how can we change that? So again, it's an engagement and education. And one of the most powerful ways that we can do this is writing resolutions and taking it to the AGM to be voted on. And I am guessing, or I'm kind of predicting that there will be a few more coming.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We went on a chat from Olivia London. So this is for both candidates. What are your strategic plan to address diversity in the ward, taking into consideration the political climate that is affecting those who identify as a minority? So as Piroshka answered last, we'll go with Alicia for this one first.
So in the ward, as in our region, is that what that means?
Olivia, if you can clarify, but I assume in the clinical setting. Oh, sorry, she does say the region.
The region, okay. So there are a number of issues in Region 6 specifically. Northwest Toronto is an area where definitely there are very diverse groups, and I used to be a manager in that area, so I know that demographic very well. It has the highest number of single mothers, teenage mothers. It also has the highest number of, this is not a population, meaning that these are the clients or patients, highest number of elderly living alone. So there are certainly a lot of issues. Now, how do we include that into our conversation and into our plan, and within also the people that we engage as nurses? So one of the things that we have done quite a few, and I've been part of the planning process in Region 6, where we talked about violence in nursing, and also how to work within a variety of culturally, meaning cultural competencies, so that we know how to manage not just one particular segment, but culturally competent nurses know how to manage these things. We actually had Toronto Police Service come, and also an expert and someone, a policy writer, to speak about this, and it was a wonderful panel. We also have done work around mindfulness, and including a lot of people came who practiced and looked at different ways of understanding themselves, so that how we step into the world. How would I continue to do this? Absolutely be inclusive, and also engage in things that highlight specific things that we're working on. So one thing that we did last year that actually brought this into focus, as we have signed an agreement with the, or an understanding with the Indigenous elders, we had an event at the AGO where we specifically looked at Indigenous art and highlighted Indigenous art and Indigenous issues. So we need to continue to have these events and these conversations at the table with Region 6, so that that it becomes aware, that we're aware of it. Because I think first you bring awareness, and then we can build on what can we do, meaning how do we support people writing resolutions, and also how do we include everyone within our region. I think we've done a really good job, and fortunately we have a very diverse board at the moment.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Alicia, you can, if you'd like me to reread that question for you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So the question is, what is your strategic plan to address diversity in the region, taking into consideration the political climate that is affecting those who identify as a minority?
So thank you, Olivia, for your question. And I think just in addition to what my colleague has, my opponent has already expressed, I think it's important that we understand the political landscape of the region that we are working in. And so in repetition, understanding that I too currently work in Region 6 and understand sort of the health disparities that people face. I think it's important to determine the channels of communications and to identify how we're actually going to, one, engage the community and reach the community, and to be able to identify, agents of political influence such as our MPs, our MPPs. We need to also look at how we're actually going to mobilize the strategies, and how we're going to be able to get our region to actually be able to employ these strategies. So looking at, diversity within this region and examining each of the different groups. I think it's important that we build coalitions. So understanding our environment, you know, understanding the needs of the community, being able to share their perspectives and to be able to support and represent is important. I think we need to continue to engage our political parties. So persuasion and, you know, helping them to understand the different perspectives and values and to be able to provide the necessary resources, keeping the culture within the culture. So preserving the culture, I guess is what I'm trying to say, being able to negotiate what is right and to continue to be persistent in advocating for diversity, equity, and strong public policies. So I think those are some of the things I would have to say with regards to that comment, with regards to your question. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
No questions in the chat right now. You can unmute yourself if you have a question for both of the candidates.
Paula's unmuted.
Oh, Paula, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's my privilege that I was a past member of the board, so my perspective is a little bit perhaps different, but I think what's really key is the COVID-19 has totally transformed practice in our province. It is something that we're going to recover from, but it's also transformed us. Even this example today as we're on a Zoom conference, so we have the ability to network and communicate. And I'm curious because the workload that nurses are under, whatever role they have, they're very much overloaded with work. And I'm curious in terms of the lifestyle of nurses in Ontario, especially RNs, how do we get those RNs to spend a bit of whatever spare time and energy they have dedicating to leveraging into the community the work that's needed? And do you have any ideas along that lines for the two of you to answer? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. We'll go with Alicia first on this one.
So thank you so much for your question. I think it is important that we continue to engage our nursing colleagues. I think it's important, you know, just being a liaison with the RNAOs, just sharing communication, being able to provide a safe space for nurses to voice their concerns and to be able to provide them with the necessary knowledge and skills for them to act upon the concerns that they may have. I think it's important that we come together, stick together now stronger than ever to be able to continue to advocate for public policy. But I think to your question, I think right now what we need to do is to create a supportive environment where nurses feel like they're able to sort of voice their concerns, and we need to stay together and, you know, keep moving these emerging concerns forward to continue to advocate for more support and for a stronger, healthy nursing work profession. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. It's
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Paula, for the question, and absolutely echo what Alicia has mentioned. One of the things that during this time of COVID, I had the opportunity to actually do a lot of in the background that obviously we may not necessarily put up on Facebook or on Twitter. We need to develop a relationship that is a trusting relationship between myself as, I mean, I've only been in this role for 1 year, and because this is a changeover between the different regions, that they have that conversation with us so that we're representing them. And behind the scenes, there have been a lot of issues with PPEs during this COVID-19. And I had the privilege of some of these members come to me with some serious issues with PPEs, with how they are assigned with their patient assignments. Some of them actually had to change jobs. And being able to take that information to the board and actually advocate for them So I think the number one thing they need to know is we are there for them. They can come to me or come to us, and that we will speak out for them. And when they know that, it happens. And it's a beautiful thing because they actually know and trust that it will stay confident, because I have kept it confidential so that no one knows where this came from, because they were afraid to lose their jobs. So it is extremely important that in this climate, we develop a trusting relationship. We are aware of the actual issues that are there. This is really important. Working 12-hour shifts with having to reuse PPEs and get them sterilized, not having or being handed out one by one how much actually you can use of PPE, and then watching patients on ventilators basically struggle and hold their hand as they pass away. It's such a stressful, traumatic event. And I've done that as a job. So I totally understand and resonate with that. And at the same time, being there for them to have that conversation. I understand, I can help, I want to help. And the whole point of being a leader is also engaging your team, meaning the Region 6 team, so that they all spoke out politically. It wasn't just necessarily the board member, but it was also all of us who were working together to speak out and create that relationship. So moving forward in the future, we also need to bring information, bring events, bring in different things that actually will impact, that will actually make a difference, that there's a takeaway, that when you come to an event, it's not just, oh, it's nice. It's actually, we learn something from each other and there is a takeaway. And we are a community, and this community is teamwork. So whatever we do, we come together in community and we learn from each other. And when that is there, you will have people coming and also sharing. I have been very blessed that I've been on this board now for a number of years, and we have created a lot of events, and I want to continue that, really strongly feel about this, because in that community, and Region 6 is amazing. Just amazing when we have people come to events and we come together and we meditated and we discussed how we're going to do things, and people shared about their lived experience as an RN, and then we all could relate to that. We need to do that more often and create that space that we can do that. And I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the candidates?
No questions on the chat.
Okay.
Anyone would like to unmute themselves and ask a question, please go ahead. Okay, it doesn't look like.
If there are no further questions, I just want to thank the audience for their engagement in this discussion with the two candidates today. I also thank the candidates for presenting their perspective in the areas that they see their strengths, what they could contribute to the board, what they could contribute to RNAO, and the continuation of being advocates and advocating for nursing and advocating for health. And I also want to say to the audience that this link, this webinar would be on my RNAO. A link would be there, so you could go and look at it and tell others who were not present to this webinar, so they could view it themselves. And I want to remind you to vote. Voting for One Member, One Vote started on the 26th of May, and it will close on the 11th of June at noon. So there are 3 main areas to vote. Again, you have to choose a candidate from Region 6 who would represent you on the board of governors. Then you also have to vote for KPMG, which is our accounting firm. And the third one is, I'll let you find out. If you haven't voted, go read it. I want to really encourage you, go vote. There is power in the vote. So thank you very much for all my participants and all my candidates for presenting such an engaging presentation. And I wish you great success in your future. Regardless of the result, I know you will be champions for RNAO. God bless.
Thank you
very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.